Completing Modern Warfare on Veteran is already no easy task, so let's do it without reloading and without using any equipment. That means no grenades, no flashbangs, no airstrikes, no smokes. Some sections are designed to have the player use this equipment, and we're going to beat it without it. Without being able to reload, I will be forced to scavenge weapons up off the ground. What makes this difficult is me being pushed into situations where I desperately need ammunition and may have to leave the comfort of my cover to get to that ammo, and sometimes I may not be able to get to anything. For my exceptions, I have allowed the use of my knife as well as certain parts where I absolutely have to reload to carry out the mission. Let's begin.
Grab the rope when you're ready. Go, go, go! Hit the target!
Our first mission is F&G, which is nothing special as it's a tutorial level, but it has the famous knifing of the watermelon, introduction to Captain Price, and the training course that people love to speedrun. I wasn't worried about much until we got to a part where the game forces you to reload as a part of the tutorial. I already thought I was going to have to use my exception here. I couldn't wait it out. Couldn't skip past it until I thought of a quick, easy fix. Reload canceling. This trick is simply where you start to reload, but you cancel it by either swapping weapons or what I did in this case is using the melee, which was the only option here. As you can see, the gun isn't fully loaded and the challenge goes on. What did have me start to worry was the training course where the game really wants you to use flashbangs to clear a room. Obviously, this was a big hiccup as we can't use any equipment. My first plan just involved me trying to run to the end of the course to see if maybe that would end it, and that just had Captain Price yelling at me.
Position 3, go back!
My second plan was where I tried waiting as long as I could to see if I could bypass the course, but it just ended up calling me slow. I thought maybe I could reload cancel here as well to trick the game into thinking I used my flashbang, but you couldn't cancel out the flashbang once you had it out. My next plan was to just simply admit defeat and let this one be a exception. The real challenge was to come soon anyways. Expendable is our next mission, which is also extremely easy and kind of just the tutorial, so I'm going to go through it really quickly. Most of the mission is stealth and your allies will do most of the work. It was sort of a way to introduce the game and set the pace, but here I did learn a few things about my upcoming challenge, and these are important, so pay close attention. When picking up a new gun off the ground, it's a random chance on how many bullets will be remaining in the magazine. You could pick up a gun and it has a few bullets or is completely empty, or you could be lucky and have it close to fully loaded. So there's some luck to this challenge. It's going to play a big role, and it's a reason for my hatred towards the last mission, Mile High Club. But this mission Expendable was a proper warm-up and prepared me for a step up in difficulty with the start of Act 1, Blackout. No better way to introduce a mission than to be in the dark, lurking around and silently taking down all hostile threats. Our mission here was to meet up with a Russian loyalist named Kamarov. Our objective was to make an assault on a village to find our other Russian friend, Nikolai. On the way to Kamarov, Gaz wanted me to go Lao with planting claymores. I had to refuse his orders and take the stealth approach, which somehow alerted the whole area. But when Gaz walks into a building and has a staring contest with the enemy, they don't move a muscle. Progressing through this mission is where my worries started flaring up. We meet up with Kamarov, and when his men make the assault, we would have to defend them. I thought I would run out of ammo without being able to pick up any new guns, but that worry was quickly squashed when all I had to do was fire 2 bullets to take out the machine gunners. Simple. The next part is where it got a little more dicey, and I got my first reality check. There were plenty of enemies rushing down this hill as we were trying to flank around to support the main assault. They weren't too much of a struggle as I had plenty of cover and allies to help. The one guy that gave me my first death, shooting 2 of the best shots of his entire life, was in final stand. Are you kidding me? That's demoralizing. That hurt even more than seeing the tooltip pop up on screen telling me to use my grenade launcher. This was just the beginning. We continued fighting on, and I let my patience game take over with clearing out all the enemies. We threatened our Russian friend Kamarov, like all friends do, and got our location on who we are really here for, Nikolai. He was stored away in some random building, and our assault was leading up to this point. We cut the power, and another tooltip comes up telling us about these night vision goggles that would allow us to see in the dark. But Soap was born in the dark, and we took out every single guy one by one. I also faced a death from a guy with the flashlight. Oh, you got it. Now I had his spawn memorized, and we had no problem getting to Nikolai despite the lack of night vision. We end the mission with him telling us that the Marines are making a mistake and won't capture Al-Assad alive. This guy who made for an iconic entrance in the prologue. Time for a change of perspective. Arriving with a flight of helicopters and bloodthirsty Marines, I was ready for a much harder obstacle. One of the things I feared with this challenge was anything close quarters. The enemy with aimbot up close, sometimes sneaking up on you, coming from absolutely nowhere at the worst time. No thank you. Worst of all, this is where I can't even use flashbangs that would stop all that chaos. Yet, I was still ready for it. We're tasked with finding Al-Assad, fighting through the town to possibly locate him, eventually ending all the way up at a TV station. Our first part of this mission is clearing this building, which is compact and has several rooms where guys can just pop out and kill you before you can even react. Very next life, I took some pot shots on the first few guys and they got mad and pushed us for it. I realized in this first room, once I crossed a certain line, that this guy would pop out from a room behind me and try to end my life. Now I was able to sense this coming and drop to the ground, taking him down as well. Barely living, I somehow survived a shot from him going into Last Stand. Seriously, I hate Last Stand. My reward was a selection of fully loaded guns that I traded out my now depleted one for. Finishing up here wasn't too bad, and I popped the last guy in the face with a shotgun. Returning back outside is where I started to die a lot more. Here in this section where our forces are advancing is where lots of enemies will spawn at unfortunate times. I took this flank and ran into a few guys locking onto me. When I cleared them out and tried advancing, I triggered a spawn that left me with no cover and enemies pushing from the front and back, sandwiching me in. Oh, motherfucker. Once I pushed far enough, I would have to turn around and take care of the threats behind me while the Marines took care of the guys up front. Moving forward, I died yet again from a few dudes popping out from their elevated cover. At this moment, the deaths were starting to rack up and the challenge was starting to beat me down. And this was just the second mission of Act 1. I wasn't even at the hardest part of this level. Towards the end is when we're taking over a TV station that Al-Assad may be at, and it is no easy feat to conquer. But before that, we had another section to clear out where I had some struggle. Right nearby the TV station, me and the Marines were pushing through some of the outskirts of some buildings where the moment you start stepping out of cover towards your objective, a whole bunch of enemies spawn in and took me down a few times. I ran into a problem where I had my guns empty of ammo and nothing to pick up, leaving me constantly swapping weapons so that my guns wouldn't reload in case I didn't remember that the gun was no longer usable. With nothing to scavenge without death, I had to wander around for a bit until I pushed a little further ahead, forcing the remaining Marines to push up and take out the rest of the enemies for me. The only ammunition I had left was that of my allies. With most of the mission beat, it was now time to attack the TV station. Why this assault was difficult was because of the reasons we said before. It was close quarters and had enemies sometimes getting the flank on you. But there was also guys with RPGs and little guns to swap out safely, so ammo became a problem, and you also had to push here or else the enemy kept respawning, which is what really made this hard. I had to push without much ammo against enemies that would aimbot you on sight, and also deal with the RPGs and a handful of grenades that were perfectly thrown into the only room I could realistically push through. Holy grenades! Holy grenades! Holy grenades! It was very rough. In this main room of the TV station, we could really only push up the left side through these small rooms as the rest of the room was too open and easy to die in. Pushing up the left also had troops thrown at me until I was able to push through and get a foothold to stop their respawning. They were doing a really good job at preventing that. Oh my god, there's so many grenades, dude. Chill, I need to go in that room. On one run is where I got very lucky. I was able to push up and make my way into a closer room. Took out one guy to the right and one to the left so that I could bolt to an even closer room that would hopefully stop the spawning. I nearly got killed from trying to stand up and put down more. And in that moment, a guy runs up and does this. Oh my god. I somehow was blessed to stay alive, taking a shotgun shot straight to the dome from a guy a few feet away from me. And after his death was when Lieutenant Vasquez came over the radio and said that the room was clear. The rest of this mission involved us working our way upwards and finding no Al-Assad here. one of my favorite missions of this entire playthrough. The bog is a place full of action in the dark, being lit up by gunfire, flares, and destruction. Although I'm kept on my toes and die within the first encounter, the bog wasn't as bad as I thought, and that's because I figured out a strategy real fast. However, the opening to this mission has a crazy gunfight, and you are to take charge on clearing this partially destroyed building. A tooltip for night vision appears again, and this lack of vision made it almost impossible to see into this room, leading to a grenade being thrown and forcing me to a corner where I was exposed and died. The biggest struggle almost anyone will have is patience, and if I had been patient, I would have realized quicker that my fellow Marines would have pushed up and cleared out the room for me. From there, I took control of the machine gun emplacement and had no worries about reloading. We advanced forward to the back of the building, and here I had to break my no reloading rule. The only way I could take out these tanks on the bridge was with the javelin. I wouldn't be able to advance without doing so, and there was no other weapon to swap out for to destroy them, forcing me to use my exception to continue on. Pushing up, we arrive at an open area where a lot more action is going down. We have a tank barely operational sitting here in the middle taking a lot of fire, and we are tasked with pushing forward and eliminating this anti-aircraft in order to have helicopter support. Looking at our situation here, I wanted to push up left to avoid the open area, but there was a lot of hostiles holding that flank and wouldn't stop respawning unless I made a solid push. Instead of that, I pushed towards the open field and eventually got myself to the right where there was this solid strip of a tiny hill that ran all the way down, providing just the right amount of cover that I needed. I had to work bit by bit playing the patient game. Eventually, I cleared an opening and was able to cross to take out the anti-aircraft, allowing us to have our satisfactory end to one of the coolest missions in all of Call of Duty.
What the bloody hell is that? Incoming missile! Mayday, this is Hammer 6-4. We are going down. I repeat, we are going down 2 miles south of Waypoint 5.
Our detour with the Marines is done for now. As you can compile from the name, things don't go so well and we end up sneaking around with large forces on the lookout for us. The first opportunity for action presents us with the chance to save an old man from being executed on this lovely night.
Alright, let's top these bastards before they kill the old man.
I kind of spaced off and didn't react. I'm sorry, old man. Moving forward, we had a lot of enemies cave in on us, and we were stuck defending until Gaz was able to make an opening for us. I was reminded with how the enemy doesn't really miss, and got another death before moving into the building. In there, we had an aggressive force surrounding the house, sending guys in the back where they quickly came at me and threw in a flash. You gotta be shitting me. They ended my life quite fast. Predicting their plan now, we eliminated them even when flashed and moved out of the house. This helicopter was still patrolling, and this was going to be the biggest obstacle of the mission. If you were at all exposed to the helicopter, you were a dead man. We wouldn't be able to hide from it forever, and jumping further ahead, we were confronted with bringing it down. To do that, we had to get into this barn where rocket launchers were stored, but the helicopter was guarding it, and their ground troops were covering the entire place. To get past this obstacle, I had to use my cover wisely while getting a good angle to take out the troops up front, but my AK was very limited on bullets. My other weapon was a shotgun, which I couldn't use effectively at this range. This left me clearing out only some of the guys out front before I had to push up and scavenge for another weapon. The only thing I could find was an Uzi, which was not easy hitting my shots with on this last guy behind a truck. So I pulled out the shotgun and used it anyways, even though I'd need the ammo for inside. Now we had to wait for the helicopter to go out of our line of sight and push on up. I immediately ran down underneath the floorboards that the enemies were standing above on to protect myself while the allies did the work for me, and even then I still almost got popped from a guy hiding behind a tractor. After this, we had our launcher and the helicopter was no longer a threat. After dying once, of course, this mission was concluded and it was time to skip ahead to War Pig. We're back at the bog with the Marines, leaving off in the same area except now it was daytime. Anytime there's a Marine mission, you can expect the experience to be chaotic, loaded with enemies. This has been the hurdle that makes these missions a little more difficult than the earlier missions that involve our team with Captain Price. It's constant gunfire, and that caused me several deaths. We were tasked with pushing Warpig forward and covering it. The gunfire even got so intense that this guy showed us a tactic in war we've never seen before. Our first big section is getting a foothold into one of these buildings. Problem is that there is enemies holding it down quite well, with them non-stop respawning. You try pushing up the left and you'll have the worst time of your life. You push up the right and this is where you have your best chance despite having several nades thrown your way. You clear out enough guys and you start making your way to the second floor where they are ready for you, just like this guy hiding in the closet.
Oh my.
That one felt really cheap. Thrown back outside, I had a little harder time getting back in. It wasn't the easiest time running through a hailstorm of bullets, not even for our Marines. I got back to where I was, and this time the guy was sitting right at the doorway ready to pop me. Trying again, I painfully made my way up the stairs and checked all my corners, making sure to clear the building to then be flanked from behind where I thought my Marines had my back. Yeah, this section was starting to get to me a little. When I finally got through fully clearing this building, it was time to embark on getting all the way down the street full of buildings and flanks littered with enemies. To continue moving down the right flank, I figured I should clear out some guys that were covering it from the left. They made it a difficult task by hitting me with some very good shots. And then after all that, this was my reward for all that work.
Oh god, I can't move. Why is it?
The next run I made it through to the back where I took the stairs up to this bigger house and cleared out the entire second floor to make sure I didn't have any BS happen to me. Then I found myself a fully loaded RPD, and these LMGs were a big treat as they last the longest with their big magazines. This came in handy with clearing out a huge group of guys right out front where we needed to push up to next. And when I got close to the entrance, someone was always taking pot shots at me from across the street on the smallest of angles. Not very nice of them. I didn't really know how to push inside as they kept spawning and there was really nowhere I could flank them, so I kinda just brute forced my way in a few times until I eventually got them all. Moving forward, we went out back and on the flank to where we had Warpig eventually take out an enemy tank. From here, the mission was basically over and wrapped up with us loading up into our helicopter, and now we pick up with the very next mission within shock and awe. This level is kind of short. Most of the time we're up in the helicopter firing away with unlimited ammo, but there's 2 times that we land and things get intense real fast. The first time involves us helping some Marines that are under heavy fire on the second floor of this unfinished structure. This had the hardest challenge I faced in a bit because after you meet up with the pinned down Marines, you now have to get them back and through all that gunfire. I didn't have much of an option other than to push up the right of this crate where I would be exposed to several enemies, which isn't any better than going up the middle where there is no chance of surviving. For icing on the cake, I also had to deal with an ammo problem. Anytime I pushed up, more enemies would come my way and I didn't have a solid way of taking them down while gaining ground. I died maybe 5 to 6 times before I had a little bit of luck on my side. This time the Marines decided to push up with me when I pushed to the corner of this doorway, something they weren't doing before. I wasn't going to complain though. They cleared out enough enemies to allow me to push through. I took down all remaining troops and we made our way to the helicopter. Oh, then yeah, of course, there was these 2 guys hiding and waiting for us. But thankfully I had a checkpoint and we then headed to our next and final section of this mission. We had to rescue the pilot who goes down during our flight out of here. We weren't going to leave her behind and we were going to save her. So we landed and had to get to her before the enemy got there first. Picking her up and taking her back was actually a pain. I even think the game gives you increased health here, but I still was getting lit up without my Marines doing much cover support. On another life, I tried sticking to the edges and going around to where they couldn't shoot me as much, and that seemed to work to get us on here and finish with our mission.
Everyone hang on!
After that huge turn of events that our player and characters went through, it was time to crank the difficulty up and now face the hardest mission we have encountered. Little did I know that it was going to become much, much worse. Our Marines are toast, and we're now glued to our task force for the rest of it. The start of Safehouse starts us at the bottom of the hill, with the village up above being taken over and having what sounds like a lot of terrible things going on. It was our duty to find Al-Assad here and take over the village, which meant going building to building. What would have prevented this mission from being extremely hard was being able to call in helicopter support that is given to us throughout the mission, but our challenge prevented us from using it. So, our objective: make a loop around the village, clearing out each building until we could advance on up to this barn in the back where we will find our target, Al-Assad. Taking the first building? No problem. Getting to the second building was a little bit of a hassle, with enemies respawning and giving a little wiggle room to make an advance. But eventually they pushed me and gave me a few seconds to run over out to the side where we would flank around to the back of the building. Pushing in, I took down all threats with ease and got ourselves a checkpoint. The push up to the next building, however, was where things really started to get irritating. When leaving out back and trying to continue up the hill, the next building has guys out on the balcony that got their sights trained on the route we need to take. Seriously, they are ready to shoot the millisecond you pop out of cover. This means I had to wait for a good chance just to get a shot in on them. They were pesky little dudes that really annoyed me. After clearing them all out, we get up to the third house and start getting to work. This guy even killed himself with his own grenade after hiding in the bathroom.
Oh, what the heck was that?
So third building was clear and it was time to move up to the fourth, which is at the top of the hill. Problem here is that we had a long opening with little cover to get across in order to clear the building. What didn't help is that there were guys in the windows that were deadly accurate.
Oh god, oh god.
And here's the thing, receiving this death took me all the way back down to the second building. This is when the situation truly started to get annoying. Anytime I died trying to take that fourth building, I'd get reset all the way down here, which meant I had a lot more ground to regain just to have another attempt at the house on the top of the hill. This time, however, I didn't have a smooth assault. I would die to guys that weren't where they previously were. Down at the second building, there was this new guy that would push me while I was trying to take down the enemies up at the balcony. And then anytime I got up to the fourth house, I'd die to those same guys in the windows, and I was starting to get really frustrated.
Please don't. Please don't. Oh my gosh.
The deaths just kept coming and my patience was being tested. It wasn't until more suffering that I realized something. I probably wasn't fully clearing the third building, as I had gotten checkpoints before at each clearing of the first two buildings. So this time I went through the whole building, found some more enemies, and it turns out I was right. I was supposed to get a checkpoint here. This could have prevented a lot of suffering and saved me time on my attempts. I seriously hated all of that. With this, I was still dying a few times, and now the enemies were sending reinforcements that caused me to stay inside the bathroom of the third building waiting for my allies to clear them out. If you were wondering how much gunfire you had to go through on these missions, then check this out.
I think that's enough bullets.
I think a big reason as to why I was struggling is because certain enemies were just given greater accuracy to encourage the player to use the helicopter support, which would make sense if that's true. So I just kept attacking until I got lucky enough to breach the fourth building for the first time in this playthrough. And I got severely lucky holding back these troops with my last shot, giving me enough time to pick up another gun. And with that, we had finally cleared the fourth building and made progress. Though this mission wasn't done stressing me out yet. Now we had to work our way downwards and clear out one more building before the barn. Oh, and they would send reinforcements to the top of the hill, which would later make me wait for my allies to take them out each time I died and reset. Those allies would take a little long dealing with them, as they were hiding behind imaginary cover, not doing anything majority of the time. This ate away a lot of time and patience in between each attempt. And anytime I got down to the next house, I would die either from this guy coming around the corner or this guy in the window. One time I got the guy in the window, but then another guy took his place and I fell victim to the window camper once again. Thank you, Albert Einstein, for the quote. After waiting at the top of the hill for a minute or two for maybe the 5th time, I was able to get to that window at the 5th building once again, this time taking out 2 guys, then the window camper, crawling underneath, and then taking out 1 more around the corner. I finally made some more progress, and I was a little nervous about someone pushing me from out of nowhere, but my allies came down and I got them inside to help clear the house. All the buildings were clear except for the barn, which was all the way in the back, but this proved to be no challenge and we were at the end of our mission. However, we would return to this location.
The one's getting a bit choppy. You can compensate for it, or you can wait it out. But he might leave before it dies down. That's your call.
Jumping past the mission all gillied up, we are now at 1 shot, 1 kill, where we visit the past with a younger Captain Price trying to assassinate the main villain of this game, Imran Zakhaev. I skip all gillied up as the mission played about just the same as a normal playthrough because the entire mission is basically just sneaking around. Although I did think it was kind of funny when we were following Captain Macmillan around and he was protected by plot armor when he was clearly spotted by the enemy here.
Stay hidden. Move up.
But 1 shot, 1 kill I thought may be the hardest mission in this entire journey, mainly because the end has us holding up waves of overwhelming amounts of troops for what seems like a very long time. If you were to die, then you'd have to restart the timer and try again. And it'd take a long time for that helicopter to come and get to you. Before that, we had to actually get to this point. During our escape, it wasn't too hard getting to where we needed to go. I even brought down this helicopter with a pistol and then was a dummy and got real close to getting my body chopped in half. Then when I was trying to shoot all these guys as they came down the rope from this helicopter, I realized only 1 came out the side I was aiming at while the rest were already coming down the back exit. Yikes. At another time, I got killed by a corner camper. It was mostly a fun journey, but now the end of this mission was the hardest part. That was holding off the waves and waves of countless enemies until we even had a chance at running to our ride. So instead of doing all of that, I found this little structure that I hid in for the entire time. The only thing that happened was grenades were non-stop being thrown at the doorway, making me fear for my life for about 5 minutes until our ride was finally here. And then a problem came up, and it was those grenades. I died trying to get back outside. With the only way to my ride, that means I had to run through the doorway where the grenades were constantly being thrown. So after all that waiting around, I had to wait again. And this time I barely made it out. Then realized I had to pick up Macmillan and carry him across hundreds of flying bullets. And somehow I got to the helicopter as they were literally leaving us. I avoided a lot of stress this mission, and I was soon going to need that for these last missions. We're back at the safe house, except it did not get any easier. Heat is the name of the level, which is fitting considering the amount of gunfire we had to put ourselves through. We start by surprising our enemy towards the bottom of the hill, but they push us back and we end up covering our allies' retreat on the minigun. It's intense, but nothing hard yet. Eventually we get pushed back to a house we previously taken where traps were primed and ready for us to use on the enemy. Eventually we get pushed all the way back to the barn just to find out we have to make our way all the way to the bottom of the hill to get out of here. And if you see all these guys unloading in the very open fields, I think you'll start to piece together what's going to make this level difficult. So let's lay it out. We're at the barn and we got hostiles directly in front of us and on our right flank where I believe we will have our best shot of punching through enemy lines. Here's the problem. We're supposed to be calling in airstrikes to put down these guys, but we love going through pain here. Ammo was also a problem. We couldn't get close to many guys to pick up their guns, so that left us having to use our bullets very wisely. Just trying to get outside to the right flank was difficult. Look at how fast this dude took me down. When I was able to clear the area, moving up had minimal cover with a few guys moving up and more in the back line, making it very difficult to advance. The best place I found to take cover was in the ditch with a big old pipe exposing me to the enemies firing through the bushes in the back. I couldn't really stand up and try to take down the troops in the field as they were more directly to my left that would turn to kill me if I stood up. So I got a little lost here on what to do. Where could I possibly make a push while trying to beat the timer that we have to get to the bottom of the hill? I thought maybe I can crawl through the pipe, staying in the ditch, and return shots to the guys hidden behind smoke and bushes. But no matter how many bullets I fired, it seems I couldn't kill them, and they somehow could see me through all the smoke. I was starting to get concerned that this mission was going to eat away lots of time. I thought maybe I could use the cover in the middle of the field and crawl all the way around to the far right side, and this is how that went.
I think that's enough grenades. I think that's enough grenades.
How is this going to be possible with circumstances like that? Maybe I could actually push straight up the middle and possibly have my allies move up to kill the enemies for me, but that strategy was quickly answered for me. Then I gave another attempt on the right flank, except I got impatient and ran straight up the middle. Somehow I wasn't getting shot, and the guys that ran out onto the field were distracted with firing their RPGs, and with that I was able to eliminate them all. Then all the guys in the back line just couldn't hit me from over here, so I was finally able to push through and make it back to the houses. However, I was very concerned as I knew I had to fight for a checkpoint or else all that progress would be lost. And thankfully, the moment I got around this house, my game was saved and I knew the rest would be easy sailing from here. Getting up to this point was very painful, and after all the stuff we encountered in previous missions, it was all really starting to get very tiresome. But thankfully I was right about the easy sailing for the rest of this mission. Running down the rest of the hill was a lot easier, and I was able to get the heck out of this mission. And although my playthrough of this mission was shorter than most, I felt this one was up there as one of the most difficult levels of the challenge. And our next mission was Sins of the Father, which overall was very easy. The objective was to get information from Imran Zakhaev's son, and you're chasing him the entire mission. The only good moment I thought was worthy was when he was standing in the window and just randomly dropped me when I moved up. I guess I just thought since he wasn't already firing that he wouldn't start lighting me up a second later. Also, there was another guy floating, which now leaves us on the next mission, Ultimatum.
Bravo 6, Griggs just activated his emergency transponder. He's half a click to your southwest. Over.
We start by parachuting in, realizing that Sergeant Griggs was separated from us, so we had to go get him. That involved us moving through the early morning and taking out some enemies along the way. Griggs was held up in one of these buildings, and it was starting to become daytime, so we had to work quick. And by quick, I guess that means Captain Price letting me do all the work. Rescuing Griggs wasn't so hard, and we continue on with our plan, which is infiltrating this base by cutting the power. Then gas falls over like a doofus, and we encounter our first real challenge of the mission. This section starts us by encountering a line of enemies all over the ground, on the roofs, and being reinforced by helicopters dropping off even more. My strategy, which always seems to be the same, is using that right flank to attack the weaker side of the enemy forces while attempting to push my allies up the middle. It wasn't the easiest, and I got stuck here for quite some time. There was a Dragunov sniper in the back that I used to take out a lot of the guys on the ground. Then I used my LMG to clear those on the roof. Right after, there was a whole other wave coming straight down the middle and forced me backwards. Nonetheless, I was able to take care of them no problem and go through this building just to be met with more enemies straight away. And I gotta say, dropping troops off by helicopter right in front of us is kind of ballsy to do. They weren't a threat. The next section though was kind of a fun, miserable experience. My first attempt had me stuck behind this wall pinned by a grenade. The next life had an RPG sent straight to my face. I somehow slipped away from that one just to get sandwiched between two grenades. Oh. This was miserable because I was dying a lot, but fun because I was enjoying these stupid little situations I got thrown into. On a real attempt, I picked up the Dragunov again and started picking them off one by one. This allowed me to push up, and these guys would just throw grenades one by one, delaying their demise. But the only demise that came was these fast shots they delivered straight to my dome. I wasn't having much fun anymore, and so it was time to try some more patience. I tried using the corner of this tank to take some guys down that were giving me problems, but I would run out of ammo and be forced to push into the building I kept dying in just to pick up a gun. I don't know what made them so accurate here. I was stuck here for a lot more deaths until I was able to finally pick them off at a range and move on up for a checkpoint. Running through the rest of the level, we learned that nukes are being sent into the skies, and the next mission would pick right where we left off. Stakes are set, and it was time we got into the launch site and stopped the nukes from reaching their destinations. That meant clearing out all the resistance on ground level, and not just foot soldiers, but enemy armor as well. Specifically, the BMP-2, designed to f*** us up. And it served that purpose, killing me over and over again, just trying to destroy it with planted C4. Every time I died, it required me to reset and take out the same enemies repeatedly. The whole idea was to use smoke grenades so no one could shoot you when pushing the enemy armor, but I had to run up to it while dodging all the bullets flying at me. Not very fun. Most of the time I'd place the C4 and think I couldn't make it back, so I instead ran forward, but that didn't get anywhere. Half the time I was just dying when trying to clear out the enemies in the path between me and the BMP-2. They were sneaky little guys. After about a dozen attempts, I noticed that my allies would throw smoke. Not very good throws, but I guess it was something. And that something was just enough for me to push up, plant the C4, and run the fastest I have ever backed to cover. The armored vehicle was destroyed. Moving on up, we had a tight area to push through to clear out a ton of hostiles. I realized I wasn't going to be able to make a dent and had to come up with something else. I saw Sergeant Griggs up along some cover and just decided to give him a little bump out of it. This gave him some better angles and let him clear out enough troops for me to make a solid push. Then I unfortunately ate this grenade. But I did the strategy again, and this time he pushed up with me and we ended up clearing the area. What I forgot about was there would be even more soldiers and 2 additional BMP-2s in this last section. This was misery. So I tried taking out some guys on the right side that were pushing up and then made an advance on the first armored vehicle to realize this one had much more supporting fire than before. I had a feeling this was going to be really bad, so I looked around for an RPG to maybe save myself from more pain, and there was none anywhere. I had to cook up some plan, and I didn't have anything new. I tried approaching from a different angle to see if maybe that was my problem. It was not. I tried my first method to see if I'd get lucky this time, and surprisingly enough, I was able to time it just right to attach a C4 to the front and get back in time before dying. The first one was down, and it only took me a painful amount of deaths. With this, I knew I could push up further and see if I could now find an RPG to save myself the trouble. There just happened to be 2 in this hangar with a direct line of sight to hit the second BMP-2. I ended up missing the first RPG, so I had to die and try again, as I would need 2 shots to land. I got it in a few attempts, and this mission was coming to a close. We prepared ourselves and headed down into the launch site, where my pain would be taken to the extreme. Somehow this wasn't my worst mission, yet it had me going crazy with how many times I did the exact same thing over and over again. This level was not good to me. We walked into heavily contested enemy territory with numerous piles of bodies that were those of our allies. I should have taken those as a sign for what's to come. We were given 9 minutes to do our job down here. Right off the bat, some of the hardest encounters I've had were thrown into a close quarters situation. Got our first few deaths, no biggie. Eventually we clear them out and move on up. Even take down the next section first try. Proceed on down the stairs and almost immediately get popped. Having almost no ammo, I try pushing up and move to the side where I figure out there's guys hiding behind these boxes like rats.
Oh, okay.
But that's alright because we can just try again. When I respawn, I'm all the way back at the beginning with that timer starting at 9 minutes. I did not like that. When could I even expect to get my next checkpoint then? Regardless, I tried again. Remember that part I got first try? Well, not this time. Another 2 minutes of extreme focus wasted. Surely, once I got downstairs again, that I'd get a checkpoint this time. And about another 5 lives later, I had another shot down there. And I only had about 6 minutes left this time, which meant I was 3 minutes into my run already. I really had to start taking my time just to get past these difficult sections. This dude started blind firing and still was deadly accurate. Down here, I had a very narrow path to move out into where I needed to go. And in the surrounding areas were plenty of rats hiding around waiting to jump you. How was I supposed to make any progress when I could barely even get there? It was attempt after attempt, spending countless minutes just to get back to where I was. And even then, I would still die, learn almost nothing new, and be back at square one. Well, it only took many deaths to start picking up a few strategies. In the earlier sections, I started playing it safer by pushing Captain Price and Griggs out of cover to help take down enemies, and they didn't cooperate much. Another reason why I had to do this was because my checkpoint had me in a situation with very little ammo that I couldn't take down everyone I came across. Most of the enemies were dropping AK-47s, which meant I couldn't pick them up as I already had an AK in my loadout, so ammo was as scarce as it's ever been. I went through a lot of pain trying to save the US from being obliterated from nukes, and I started questioning if it was even worth saving. My mental was going straight down a hole. I couldn't take it, but I knew I was so close to finishing this campaign. On many attempts later, I realized there was another path I could take at our first section. I could go right instead of left and try my luck over there. I didn't really know what to expect, but getting down there, it had me pitted up against a lot of guys, and I even found some guns I could swap out for, which solved my ammo problem for a little bit. Well, at least I thought it did. I ended up using even more ammo and even more time as there was many more troops over here. That's when I realized my brain power was wasted and this side was not for me to attack. So I reverted back to my old strategy, and you already know how that's been going. Okay, let's sit down and make a plan for once I get back downstairs. For dealing with the guys up front, let's just stay far back and do jump shots over our cover to take everyone out safely. After we did so, I'd need to push up before they respawn. But from previous attempts, I knew there was guys hiding behind the boxes to the left and right. So I'd get Griggs and Price to move up and deal with them for me. And this is progress, because now we have an opening and still 5 minutes remaining. Let's go around the right side and clean up the rest. Going around on the right side, I realized it was a little too quiet. Then I got jump scared by one and ran into even more guys. And I took them down no problem. And finally, I had cleared out this section and was finally able to move on. I was so ready to complete this mission, and hopefully I'd have enough time remaining to do so. The next section, I was in a similar predicament as the last. Guys were up the middle pinning me down. We had a narrow path with guys hiding on the sides once again. I tried pushing up the middle carefully to move my allies up, except they weren't moving up. I realized I was going to have to do this on my own, so I tried to crawl back to where I needed to go. This time though, it was completely fine that I died because of course we had made progress and we should have a checkpoint.
Flight, you have 9 minutes before those missiles reach the eastern seaboard. Over.
Yeah, I wasn't very happy. All that progress I just did and all the sections I finally conquered was just squashed in mere seconds. We were all the way back at square one once again for I don't even know how many times at this point. Now I think you can see why I hated this mission with all my heart. You have to remember our challenge. No reloading and no equipment such as flashbangs that would have made this a heck of a lot easier. This was the real test, and I wasn't even halfway through my attempts on this level yet. If I had to guess how many times I died, I'd say maybe 70, 80, maybe even 100 times. I really don't know, but it was a lot. I was starting to lose it. Through trial and error, I eventually got so fast and efficient that once I beat a section fast enough, I realized I got a checkpoint. This whole time, I was supposed to be getting checkpoints, but I wasn't because I didn't have enough time left on the clock for the game to save there. I'm assuming they thought a player wouldn't be able to beat the rest of the level with that amount of time remaining, so they just don't give you a checkpoint to avoid getting stuck. However, I know that time would have been enough to get through, and they were just being really mean to me here. With this new discovery, that's what led me to get really good at getting through sections and essentially going full blast just so I could save my progress and stop all that hard resetting that made this level a living nightmare. And still, we went through lots of pain. Why did they take so long? No, dude, you're... No. That guy just spawned out of nowhere. I'm convinced. Like, he actually just spawned out of nowhere. But eventually we got to the furthest we've ever made it and received a checkpoint. Finally, we'd be able to attempt this section again without the fear of resetting. Just how it should have been all the way at the beginning. And through enough sheer determination, we finally got through the hardest sections, and the rest was a much more relieving end to our mission. The nukes were stopped, and in the next mission we had our resolution to the game with a very easy send-off. Nothing really happened, so I will skip over that and go straight into the last mission, which is just a bonus one, so let's wrap up this journey pretty quick. The last mission on our journey was the bonus level that had you in the air fighting through plenty of enemies with the objective of rescuing the VIP. All this was to be done within a minute, and I was thinking I just got done with the hardest mission ever and that this would be a breeze. In reality, I was about to face the hardest mission in this entire game, and let me just say, I tried so many attempts that I considered it may be impossible without the use of flashbangs or being able to reload. This mission broke me, and this was shortly after going through all that pain in War Room. By the end of it, I was looking like a certified speedrunner, which I wish I could credit someone for giving me the strategies, but all the YouTube strats I found involved using flashbangs and reloading. So it was time for my own strategy, and what was that? Well, to land really good shots, have good RNG, and hope with enough suffering and attempts that I'd get to the end. Here's how some of my runs went.
Tango down in Section 1 Alpha. X-ray down. Weapon free. Tango down in Section 1 Alpha. Tango down. Tango down. X-ray down. We got a whole breach! Get down! Get down!
I mentioned that RNG was a big factor. When picking up a new gun off the floor, you have a random possibility of it being almost depleted or almost fully loaded. With only a minute given to you on this mission, there's maybe 2 opportunities to pick up a new gun. Every time I had a good run going, I'd get screwed over by picking up weapons with almost nothing left in the magazine, ending my run real quick. Sometimes the enemies would just be unpredictable, making it hard to develop a routine. This first guy that's coming out of the bathroom made me the most mad because sometimes I'd miss my shot on him and end up getting screwed over by it. And he was at the start of the level, so I think I just really got annoyed seeing his face over and over again and missing half the time. I went at this level for about an hour. That may not seem bad, but with each attempt lasting at maximum 1 minute, that would be at least 60 attempts. But most of the time my runs were ending within the first 30 seconds, sometimes within the first 5. That means I easily did over 100 tries at this challenge all within a single hour. Here's what I look like on my first try.
Weapons free. Tango down in Section 1 Alpha.
And then here's what I look like towards the end of my journey.
Weapons free. Tango down in Section 1 Alpha. Target neutralized. Hostile neutralized. Move. We got a whole breach!
I could go on forever about the pain suffered here, but I will just jump ahead and show you guys my whole last attempt.
Weapons free. Tango down in Section 1 Alpha. X-ray down. Move. We got a whole breach! Get down! We're looking for a civilian.
My anxiety was boiling when I thought I was going to miss the final shot. I was going to be beyond defeated if I had really choked that shot. I was just mentally drained by the end of this, but my challenge was complete. Modern Warfare without reloading nor using any equipment or streaks was finished.